The smell of fresh earth still clung to my coat when I turned onto Maple Street. The same street where I'd lived for 40 years, where I'd raised my son, where I'd kissed my husband goodbye every morning before work. The funeral had ended less than 2 hours ago. I could still feel the weight of the casket's polished wood under my trembling palm as I'd said my final goodbye to Robert. My hands shook on the steering wheel, not from grief, though God knows there was enough of that, but from exhaustion. The kind that seeps into your bones when you've spent 3 weeks watching the love of your life fade away in a hospital bed, then somehow find the strength to plan a funeral, greet mourners, and pretend you're not dying inside with every breath. I just wanted to go home, to sit in Robert's favorite chair, to smell his cologne on the throw pillows, to fall apart in private, the way widows should be allowed to. But as I pulled into my driveway, something was wrong. Black trash bags, 6 of them, lined up on the curb like body bags. My heart stuttered. I parked crookedly, barely remembering to put the car in park before I stumbled out. The November wind cut through my funeral dress. The black one Robert had always said made my eyes look silver and whipped my gray hair across my face. I knelt beside the first bag. My hands fumbled with the knot. Inside, my mother's quilts, the wedding album with the white leather cover, Robert's military medals from Vietnam, photographs, clothes, books, all of it crammed into garbage bags like trash, waiting for Tuesday pickup. No, 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 no. My voice sounded hollow, distant, like it belonged to someone else. I grabbed the second bag. More clothes, my jewelry box, the ceramic bird Robert had given me on our first anniversary, its wing broken now, shattered. I cradled the pieces in my palm, and something inside me cracked open. I ran to the front door. My key slid into the lock, turned. Nothing. I tried again. The key went in but wouldn't turn. Wrong. This was wrong. Hello? I pounded on the door. My door, the door Robert and I had painted federal blue 20 years ago. Hello? Is someone there? The door swung open. Jessica stood in the doorway. My daughter-in-law, 34 years old, blonde highlights fresh from the salon, wearing yoga pants and a smirk that made my blood run cold. "Oh," she said, leaning against the doorframe like she owned it. "You're back. Jessica, what? What's going on? Why are my things outside? Why doesn't my key work?" She examined her manicured nails, French tips. I'd noticed them at the funeral, how she'd been texting through most of the eulogy. "Well, Margaret, it's simple. This house belongs to my husband now. Robert's gone, so Daniel inherits. That's how it works." The world tilted. "What are you talking about? This is my home." "Was your home?" She smiled, and there was something reptilian in it. "Listen, I know this is hard for you, but you're going to have to find somewhere else to stay. We need the space. Daniel and I are planning to expand, maybe add a nursery, knock down some walls." She glanced at the trash bags. "I packed up your stuff. Well, most of it. Some things were just too old and worthless, so I threw them out. You understand?" My mouth opened, closed. No words came. "You can take your trash and leave now." Jessica started to close the door. I caught it with my hand. "Jessica, please, I just buried my husband. I need to sleep. I need to process this. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Can I at least—" "No." Her voice was flat, final. "I changed the locks this morning while you were at the cemetery. Perfect timing, really. The locksmith was very efficient." She looked at me with something like pity, if pity could be laced with poison. "You should have thought about this before. You should have planned better. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a lot to do. Redecorating isn't going to do itself." The door closed. Slam. The sound echoed through my chest like a gunshot. I stood there, frozen, staring at the federal blue paint. Behind that door was everything. Robert's reading chair. The kitchen table where we'd had 45 Thanksgiving dinners. The bedroom where I'd held him the night before he went to the hospital, where he'd whispered, "I love you more than my own heartbeat." Behind that door was my life, and I was locked out of it. If you're watching this and you've ever been betrayed by family, hit that subscribe button, because you need to hear what happened next. Trust me, Jessica had no idea who she was dealing with. Let me take you back, because you need to understand what this house meant, what Robert and I built, what Jessica tried to destroy. 45 years ago, I met Robert Hayes at a law school mixer. I was 23, fresh out of undergrad, determined to become a real estate attorney in a world that still thought women should be secretaries, not lawyers. Robert was 25, finishing his architecture degree, with dark eyes that crinkled when he smiled and hands that could draw buildings that looked like dreams. We were married 6 months later. People said we were rushing. We didn't care. Robert designed our house. Every room, every corner, every window placed to catch the morning light just right. We bought the land on Maple Street, 2 acres of possibility, and spent every weekend for 2 years building it ourselves. Well, mostly Robert building, while I handed him tools and studied for the bar exam on a makeshift desk of plywood and sawhorses. I can still remember the day we moved in, January 1980, snow falling in fat, lazy flakes. Robert carried me over the threshold even though I was 8 months pregnant with Daniel, laughing as I protested that he'd hurt his back. "This is our fortress," he'd said, setting me down gently in the empty living room. "Nothing bad happens here, only love." Daniel was born 6 weeks later. We brought him home to that house, to the nursery Robert had painted pale yellow with clouds on the ceiling. We watched him take his first steps on the hardwood floors Robert had laid by hand. We taught him to ride a bike in the driveway. We celebrated every birthday, every graduation, every milestone within those walls. The house grew with us. Robert added a sunroom when I made partner at the firm. I planted rose gardens when Daniel went to college. We renovated the kitchen, updated the bathrooms, replaced the roof twice. Every improvement, every change we made together. It was never just a house. It was the physical manifestation of our marriage. Every nail, every board, every paint color chosen together. Our fingerprints were literally in the walls. And then, 5 years ago, Jessica appeared. Daniel brought her to Sunday dinner one crisp October evening. She was beautiful in that calculated way, the kind of beauty that requires maintenance and money. Blonde hair that moved like silk, designer clothes that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage used to, a smile that looked practiced in mirrors. "Mom, Dad, this is Jessica," Daniel said, and I saw it in his eyes. He was already gone, already under her spell. Robert and I exchanged a glance across the dinner table. We'd been married long enough to communicate without words. His slight frown said, "Something's off." My tiny headshake replied, "Give her a chance. We gave her a chance. God, did we give her a chance." The red flags started small. Jessica would check her phone constantly during conversations, scrolling through Instagram while Robert told stories. She'd make little comments. "Oh, Margaret, you still work? That's so admirable for someone your age." She'd decline invitations to family events. "Sorry, we have plans with my friends." Then the isolation began. Daniel used to call me 3 times a week. After Jessica, it became once a week, then twice a month, then only when I called him first. Sunday dinners disappeared. Birthday celebrations became rushed obligations. Christmas became a negotiation. "Well, we have to see Jessica's family too, Mom. We can't play favorites." When I tried to talk to Daniel about it, he'd get defensive. "Jessica's not the problem, Mom. You're just having trouble letting go. I'm not a kid anymore." But he was wrong. Jessica was the problem. And she was just getting started. Robert's cancer diagnosis came 3 years into Daniel and Jessica's marriage. Pancreatic, stage 4. The doctor gave him 6 months. He fought for 14, every day a war against the disease, eating him from the inside. I cut back my hours at the firm to care for him. Some days Robert was strong enough to sit in his chair, to tell me about the buildings he'd designed, to hold my hand and talk about the life we'd built. Other days he couldn't get out of bed, and I'd lie beside him, feeling his heartbeat slow, feeling him slip away piece by piece. Daniel visited. Not often, but he visited. He'd sit with his father, hold his hand, cry in the bathroom when he thought no one could hear. Jessica never came. Hospital germs, she'd say. I have a sensitive immune system, or it's just too hard for me emotionally, or my personal favorite, watching old people die is so depressing. Old people. Robert was 68, alive, fighting, still my husband, still Daniel's father, not old people, a person, a man who deserved dignity. The cruelty escalated. When Robert was still well enough to leave the house, we'd ask to come to Daniel and Jessica's apartment for dinner, just to see our son, to feel normal for one evening. Jessica would refuse. The apartment's too small. We're renovating. We have other plans. When Robert lost his hair from chemotherapy, Jessica made a joke at Thanksgiving, the last one we'd have together, though we didn't know it then. Well, at least you won't have to pay for haircuts anymore. She'd laughed, alone. The rest of the table sat in horrified silence. Robert just smiled sadly and changed the subject. He always took the high road, even when it killed him. The worst came during Robert's final hospitalization. He'd been admitted 3 days earlier, his body finally giving up the fight. The doctors said it was time to say goodbye. I'd called Daniel immediately. He came. He sat with his father. He held Robert's hand and apologized for not visiting more, for letting Jessica keep him away, for wasting the time they could have had. Robert forgave him. Of course he did. You're my son. I love you. Nothing changes that. And then Jessica walked in. She didn't ask how Robert was feeling, didn't offer comfort, didn't acknowledge that her husband was about to lose his father. She looked at Robert, pale, skeletal, struggling to breathe, and said, "Robert, I know this isn't a great time, but did you ever get around to updating your will? Daniel and I have been talking, and with the house being worth so much now, we just want to make sure everything's in order. I've never wanted to hit someone in my life, but in that moment, standing beside my dying husband, listening to this woman talk about money while Robert gasped for air, I wanted to hurt her." Robert just closed his eyes. "It's handled, Jessica. Everything is handled." She left shortly after, didn't stay for the end, didn't say goodbye. Daniel stayed. He was holding Robert's hand when he died at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I was on the other side whispering to my husband that it was okay to let go, that I'd be fine, that I loved him more than the stars loved the night. Robert's last words were to me. He squeezed my hand with what little strength remained and whispered, "Protected. Trust. The documents. Make her learn." I didn't understand then. I was drowning in grief, in the reality that the man I'd loved for 45 years was gone, that I'd never hear his voice again, never feel his arms around me, never dance with him in the kitchen to old jazz records. But I would understand soon enough. The funeral was 4 days later. I planned everything myself. Daniel tried to help, but he was wrecked, barely functioning. I chose the casket, picked the flowers, white roses, Robert's favorite, wrote the obituary, arranged the reception. Jessica showed up late. She wore black, but it was a cocktail dress, not funeral attire. Too short, too tight, too celebratory. She spent most of the service on her phone. I caught her twice, once texting during the eulogy, once taking a selfie by the floral arrangements. But the worst part? She left, right in the middle, just walked out. I thought maybe she was sick, overwhelmed with emotion, needing air. I later learned from Mrs. Chen, our neighbor, that Jessica had driven to our house during the funeral, had let herself in with Daniel's old key, had walked through every room with her phone out, taking photographs, measuring spaces, planning renovations. While I buried my husband, she was shopping for new curtains. The funeral ended at 1 p.m. I stayed at the cemetery for another hour, sitting beside the fresh grave, talking to Robert the way I'd talked to him every day for 45 years, telling him about the beautiful service, about how many people came, about how much he was loved. I didn't know that in those 60 minutes Jessica had called a locksmith, had changed every lock on my house, had packed my belongings into trash bags and dragged them to the curb. I drove home at 2:30 p.m. expecting to grieve in peace. Instead, I found myself homeless. I sat in my car in that driveway for 20 minutes after Jessica closed the door. Just sat there, staring at those trash bags, at the house that held my entire life, unable to process what had just happened. Finally, my hands shaking, I pulled out my phone and called Eleanor Martinez. Eleanor and I had been law partners for 30 years before we both retired. She specialized in family law. I specialized in real estate and trusts. We'd seen every kind of human ugliness, every betrayal, every family torn apart by greed. We thought we'd seen everything. We hadn't seen this. Margaret? Eleanor's voice was warm, concerned. Honey, how are you holding up? How was the service? Eleanor. My voice cracked. I need help. 20 minutes later, she arrived, found me still sitting in the car crying so hard I couldn't catch my breath. She held me while I told her everything, while I broke apart in her arms. Then she got to work. Okay, Eleanor said, her voice shifting into attorney mode. First, we're getting you somewhere safe. You're coming to my house tonight. Second, we're calling Daniel. And third, Margaret, honey, I need you to think carefully. Did Robert leave a will? Do you have any documentation about the house ownership? I don't know, I stammered. Robert said something before he died, about documents, but I didn't understand. Everything's in his office filing cabinet, at least it was. I looked at the trash bags. If Jessica hasn't already thrown it all away. Eleanor's jaw tightened. Let's find out. We went through every trash bag. It took an hour. We found clothes, books, photographs, kitchenware, all of it tossed carelessly, items of enormous sentimental value treated like garbage. My mother's quilt smelled like the trash can. Robert's medals were scratched. Our wedding album had a coffee stain on the cover. But we didn't find any documents. No files, no paperwork, nothing legal. She must have them inside, Eleanor said grimly, probably going through them right now looking for the will. Should we call the police? I asked. She can't just lock me out of my own house. That's illegal, isn't it? Oh, it's very illegal. Eleanor pulled out her phone. This is called illegal eviction, and it's a crime. We can have her arrested right now. We can call the police, they'll force entry, and you'll be back in your house by dinner time. My hand moved toward my phone, then stopped. But, I said because I heard it in her voice. Eleanor paused. But, Margaret, you're a real estate attorney, one of the best I've ever known, and you've always told me that Robert was meticulous about legal matters. If he told you to trust the documents, there's a reason. Before we make any moves, let me do some research. Let me pull the property records, check for any trusts or estate planning documents Robert might have filed. Give me until tomorrow morning. Something in her words resonated. Robert was meticulous. He'd spent his entire career designing buildings, planning every detail, thinking 50 years ahead. He wouldn't have left me unprotected. He wouldn't have let Jessica do this, protected. Trust the documents. Make her learn. Okay, I said, tomorrow morning. But Eleanor, where am I supposed to sleep tonight? My guest room. And tomorrow we fight back. I didn't sleep. How could I? I lay in Eleanor's guest bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The trash bags, Jessica's smirk, the sound of my own door closing in my face. But more than anything, I thought about Robert's last words. Make her learn, not make her pay, not get revenge. Make her learn. There was wisdom in that. Even dying, even betrayed by the woman his son had married, Robert was trying to teach someone something. At 6 a.m., Eleanor knocked on the door. Margaret, you need to see this. I found her in her home office, surrounded by papers, her laptop glowing in the early morning light. She looked up at me with an expression I couldn't read. Robert was a genius, she said softly. She turned the laptop toward me. On the screen, property records for 12-47 Maple Street. My house, but the ownership section made my breath catch. Hayes Family Irrevocable Trust, sole beneficiary, Margaret Ann Hayes. Date of execution, November 15, 2014. 10 years ago, Eleanor said, Robert transferred the house into an irrevocable trust. You are the sole beneficiary. That means the house never belonged to Robert individually. It belonged to the trust. And when he died, it didn't pass through his estate. It didn't go to Daniel. It stayed with the trust. It stayed with you. I stared at the screen, words blurring through tears. But Jessica said a lot of things. All of them wrong. Eleanor pulled out another document. Look at this. The trust documents. Robert named himself as trustee during his lifetime, with you as successor trustee upon his death. That means you now have complete control. You can live in that house for the rest of your life. You can sell it. You can leave it to whomever you want. Jessica and Daniel have exactly zero claim to it. None. Not even a little. She illegally evicted me from property I own, I said slowly, understanding dawning. She did. And she changed the locks. And she disposed of your personal property without permission. Any one of those things is a crime. All three together? Eleanor smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. Margaret, we can destroy her. My hands shook. I could call the police right now, could have Jessica arrested by lunchtime, could be back in my house by dinner, could watch her led away in handcuffs, could end this nightmare in a single phone call. But make her learn. No, I said quietly. Eleanor's eyebrows shot up. No? Not yet. I stood, moved to the window, looked out at the sunrise painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Robert and I used to watch sunrises together from our bedroom window. He'd hold me and say the day was a gift, every single one a gift. Jessica needs to understand what she's done, I said. She needs to face real consequences, not just an arrest, not just being removed from the house. She needs to learn about respect, about dignity, about the fact that grief doesn't make you weak and age doesn't make you helpless. I turned back to Eleanor, my oldest friend, my former partner. My ally in this war I didn't ask for, but would damn well finish. I want to let her think she won, I said. Let her get comfortable. Let her make more mistakes. Let her dig herself deeper. And then, when she least expects it, when she thinks she's invincible, we show her the truth. We show her that actions have consequences. We make sure she never, ever does this to someone else. Eleanor studied me for a long moment. Then she smiled. You want to play the long game. I want her to understand that you can't steal someone's life while they're burying their husband and walk away unscathed. I want her to feel what I felt standing on that doorstep, powerless, betrayed, lost. I met Eleanor's eyes. And then I want her to realize she was never in control, that from the moment she changed those locks, she sealed her own fate. Eleanor stood, walked over and hugged me tight. Robert would be so proud of you. Robert was always the strategic one, I said. He taught me that the best buildings aren't just beautiful, they're designed to last, to withstand storms, to protect what matters. I pulled back, wiped my eyes. Jessica just declared war on someone she assumed was helpless. She has no idea that Robert spent 10 years building legal fortifications specifically to protect me. So what's the plan? I took a deep breath, felt something shift inside me. The grief was still there. It would always be there. But underneath it, something else was growing. Strength, purpose. The quiet, burning determination of someone who's decided they will not be destroyed by cruelty. We document everything, I said. Every mistake she makes, every law she breaks, every piece of evidence that shows her intent. We let her get comfortable in my house, thinking it's hers. We watch her redecorate, post on social media, brag to her friends. We let her expose herself. And then we take her to court. We show a judge exactly what kind of person would lock a widow out of her home during a funeral. We make sure the consequences are severe enough that she never forgets them. I smiled, and it felt foreign on my face, like a muscle I'd forgotten I had. We make her learn. Eleanor nodded slowly. This is going to take time, patience. It's going to be hard watching her live in your house, sleep in your bed, destroy what you and Robert built. I know, but Robert spent 45 years teaching me patience, teaching me that the right strategy beats brute force every time, teaching me that sometimes you have to play the long game to win. I looked at Eleanor. I'm not going to beat her by screaming or fighting or stooping to her level. I'm going to beat her by being smarter, being patient, and letting her defeat herself. Okay, then. Eleanor opened her laptop. Let's get to work. We're going to need a timeline, evidence logs, witness statements. We're going to build a case so airtight that when we finally present it, there will be no question, no argument, no defense. I sat down beside her. Outside, the sun had fully risen. A new day. The first day of what would become the most strategic battle of my life. Jessica had made one critical mistake. She'd assumed I was weak, vulnerable, powerless. She'd forgotten that I'd spent 40 years as a real estate attorney. That I knew property law better than most judges. That I understood contracts, trusts, and legal rights the way other people understood breathing. She'd locked out a grieving widow, but she'd also declared war on a woman who knew exactly how to fight back. And more importantly, she'd pissed off a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Make her learn, Robert had said. Oh, I would. Jessica was about to get the education of her lifetime, and she was going to pay full tuition. I checked into the Comfort Inn on Route 9 the next morning. Not Eleanor's guest room. I needed independence, needed space to think and plan without feeling like a burden. The room smelled like industrial cleaning solution and old carpet. Nothing like the lavender sachets I kept in my linen closet at home. Had kept, past tense now. Eleanor had insisted on paying for the first week, but I'd refused. I had my retirement savings, my Social Security, Robert's life insurance. I wasn't destitute, just displaced. The irony wasn't lost on me. I owned a 4-bedroom house worth $500,000, and I was living in a motel room with a mini fridge and a TV that only got basic cable. But this was strategic. This was patience. Remember, Eleanor had said that morning over coffee, every move she makes is evidence. Every social media post, every text message, every change to the property, it all builds our case. The more comfortable she gets, the more mistakes she'll make. So I waited, and I watched. Mrs. Chen, bless her soul, became my eyes and ears. Linda Chen had lived next door for 35 years. She'd watched Daniel grow up, had brought us casseroles when Robert got sick, had sobbed at the funeral. When I called her from the motel, explaining what Jessica had done, she'd been horrified. That little witch, Mrs. Chen had hissed. I saw her loading your things into garbage bags. I thought she was helping you move. If I'd known, Margaret, I'm so sorry. I should have asked. You have a security camera, don't you, Linda? The one facing the street. A pause. Yes. Yes, I do. And it would have caught everything. Can you save that footage for me? Everything from the day of the funeral? Already done. I'll email you the files tonight. Small victory number 1. Evidence secured. By day 3, Jessica's Instagram exploded with activity. Eleanor had created a fake profile, Becky from Boston, complete with a generic profile picture and a few carefully curated posts to look legitimate, and requested to follow Jessica, approved within an hour. The post started immediately. First post, a photo of my living room with my furniture, but shot at an artistic angle. The caption, "New beginnings in my beautiful home. Sometimes life gives you exactly what you deserve." Blessed circ new chapter homeowner. I stared at my phone screen in Eleanor's office, my hands trembling with rage. Breathe, Eleanor said softly. This is good. This is evidence of her claiming ownership. Second post, the next day. Jessica standing in my kitchen, the kitchen Robert and I had renovated 5 years ago, where we danced to jazz music while cooking Sunday dinners, pointing at the cabinets with a disgusted face. Caption, "Ugh, these cabinets are so dated. Time for a complete renovation. Any interior designers want to help me turn this old lady aesthetic into something modern?" renovation, Saji fixer, upper. Out with the old. Old lady aesthetic, I murmured. Those cabinets are custom maple. We paid $8,000 for them. Screenshot everything, Eleanor said. Print it, save it. This is gold, Margaret. She's documenting her own crime. Third post. A selfie of Jessica in my bedroom, lying on the bed Robert and I had shared for 40 years, making a peace sign. Caption, Master Suite vibes. Finally have the space I deserve. Goodbye, cramped apartment. Hello, spacious living. Dower upgrade, complete. Living my best life. I closed my eyes, counted to 10, reminded myself that patience was a weapon. By day 5, Jessica threw a party. Mrs. Chen called me at 8 p.m., her voice tight with anger. Margaret, there are cars everywhere. Music blasting. She invited at least 30 people. They're using your backyard, your deck, your everything like it's some kind of nightclub. Take pictures if you can, Linda. Video if possible. Already am. Margaret, Daniel's here too. He looks miserable. That hurt more than I expected. My son standing in the house he grew up in, watching his wife celebrate stealing his mother's home. Mrs. Chen sent me a dozen photos over the next 2 hours. Jessica holding a red plastic cup, laughing with friends on my porch. People I didn't recognize eating off paper plates in my dining room. Someone had spilled something on my Persian rug, the one Robert and I had bought on our 20th anniversary trip to Istanbul. One video made my blood boil. Jessica, slightly drunk, standing in the middle of my living room with her arm around a blonde woman I didn't recognize, saying, "Yeah, it was my father-in-law's place, but he died and left it to my husband, so now it's ours. We're gonna flip it, probably. Make it modern. Everything in here is like ancient. But location is amazing, right?" Eleanor and I watched the video 3 times. She's admitting she thinks she owns it, Eleanor said. She's admitting she plans to sell it. This is perfect. This is my life she's talking about flipping. I know, honey, I know. On day 6, Jessica posted a photo of my trash bags still sitting at the curb. Apparently, I was supposed to have collected them, but I'd been too devastated to face them that first week. The caption, "When you inherit a house but the previous owner leaves all her junk behind, like, hello, this is my property now. Take your stuff." Inconsiderate. Moving on. That's when I made my move. Called a storage facility, rented a unit, and with Mrs. Chen's help, loaded every single trash bag into my car and drove them to safety. It took 3 trips. Every time I opened a bag, I felt like I was conducting an autopsy on my old life. But I saved it all. Every photograph, every quilt, every broken piece of the ceramic bird. Mrs. Chen helped me sort through everything, her hands gentle on my mother's quilts, her eyes wet with tears. "These monsters," she whispered, "treating your memories like garbage." "They'll pay for it," I said quietly. "I promise you, Linda, they will pay for every single item in these bags." By the end of the first week, I had 47 screenshots of Jessica's social media posts claiming ownership security camera footage of the illegal lockout photos of my belongings in trash bags, video of Jessica's party, text messages from Jessica to Daniel. Mrs. Chen overheard him reading them aloud, frustrated. "Your mother needs to pick up her stuff. I'm not running a storage service. Tell her to come get it or I'm taking it to the dump." A complete inventory of every item in those trash bags, documented and photographed, Eleanor compiled it all into a thick folder labeled Hayes v. Hayes. "Phase 1 complete," she said. "She thinks she's won, she's comfortable, she's making mistakes. Now we move to Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? Eleanor smiled. "We let her know someone's watching. We introduced just enough doubt to make her nervous, but not enough to make her smart." "You're enjoying this?" "Margaret, I spent 30 years watching entitled people destroy families for money, watching them manipulate and abuse and walk away unpunished. For once, just this once, I get to see justice actually happen. So yes, I'm enjoying this immensely." I looked at the folder. at the evidence of Jessica's cruelty, her greed, her complete disregard for anyone but herself. Robert's voice echoed in my memory. Make her learn. Okay, I said. Let's teach her a lesson she'll never forget. Eleanor drafted the letter on Monday morning. It arrived at my house, via certified mail on Wednesday. I imagined Jessica signing for it, probably annoyed at the interruption to her Instagram photo shoot. Opening the thick envelope, pulling out the legal letterhead from Martinez and Associates, attorneys at law. Formal notice of illegal occupation to Jessica Lynn Hayes, property located at 1247 Maple Street. Dear Ms. Hayes, this letter serves as formal notice that you are illegally occupying property located at 1247 Maple Street. Said property is owned exclusively by the Hayes Family Irrevocable Trust, with Margaret Ann Hayes as sole beneficiary and trustee. Your occupation of this property, entered into through illegal eviction of the rightful owner, constitutes criminal trespassing, illegal lockout, and theft of personal property. You are hereby ordered to vacate the premises immediately and restore all property to its rightful condition. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in legal action, including but not limited to civil suit for damages, criminal charges for illegal eviction, and injunctive relief for immediate possession. Govern yourself accordingly. Eleanor Martinez, Esquire. Mrs. Chen called me 20 minutes after the mail carrier left. Margaret, she's laughing. She's standing in your driveway reading the letter and laughing. What's she doing now? Taking a picture of it, posting it on Instagram. Hold on. Yes, there it is. Caption says, when your dead father-in-law's lawyer friend tries to scare you but you know your rights. Nice try, but this house legally belongs to my husband. Do your research, lady. Failed lawyer. Know your rights. Can't scare me. I closed my eyes, took a breath. Perfect. Perfect. Margaret, she's documenting her refusal to comply. She's showing contempt for legal authority. She's making this easier for us. I paused. What's Daniel doing? He's inside. I can see him through the window. He looks upset. My heart clenched. My son. My baby boy who I'd raised to be kind, to be honest, to respect others. Watching his wife mock legal proceedings. Watching her steal from his own mother and doing nothing. Or maybe he was starting to see, starting to understand what kind of person he'd married. The next day, Mrs. Chen reported that a man in a cheap suit had arrived at the house, stayed for about 30 minutes, left looking uncomfortable. Jessica's lawyer, Eleanor predicted. She's probably paying him $200 an hour to tell her what she wants to hear. She was right. Jessica's response came via email that afternoon, sent from her lawyer's office. Ms. Martinez, my client, Mrs. Jessica Hayes, is in lawful possession of the property at 1247 Maple Street, inherited through her husband Daniel Hayes upon the death of his father, Robert Hayes. Your client has no legal standing to contest this inheritance. We suggest Ms. Hayes Sr. find suitable alternative housing arrangements. Any further harassment will be met with legal action. Thomas Berkeley, attorney at law Eleanor, read it twice, then burst out laughing. Oh, this is beautiful. He didn't even check the property records. He just took her word for it. So what do we do? Nothing yet. Let them get comfortable in their incompetence. Eleanor leaned back in her chair. In 48 hours, I'll send a second letter. This time with copies of the trust documents attached. Let's see how confident they are when confronted with actual evidence. Those 48 hours felt like 48 years. Mrs. Chen kept me updated. Jessica had started redecorating, hired painters to cover the soft yellow walls of the living room, the walls Robert and I had carefully chosen because they caught the afternoon light like honey, with gray. Cold, modern gray. She'd thrown out my kitchen curtains, the ones with the sunflowers that my mother had made for me as a housewarming gift in 1980. 45 years of history, tossed in the garbage like they were nothing. She'd moved furniture, removed pictures, started planning to knock down the wall between the kitchen and dining room, the wall that Robert had specifically designed to create separate spaces. to make the house flow in a way that felt like a hug. Every update from Mrs. Chen felt like a knife, but I documented it all, photographed the garbage bags full of my curtains, saved the Instagram posts showing the new paint color, recorded every single change. And then, on Friday morning, Jessica made her biggest mistake yet. She held a garage sale. Mrs. Chen called me at 7 a.m. Margaret, you need to get over here. She's selling your things." I was there in 15 minutes, Eleanor beside me in the passenger seat. We parked down the street far enough away that Jessica wouldn't notice us, close enough to see my wedding china. The set Robert and I had received as a gift that we'd used for every holiday dinner for 45 years. Displayed on a folding table with a handwritten sign, $40 for the complete set. $40. For memories worth more than gold. My mother's vintage sewing machine, the books from Robert's office, the painting his sister had done of our house, the antique lamp that had belonged to Robert's grandmother, all of it priced to sell, displayed like common junk, treated like it had no history, no meaning, no soul. I watched a woman pick up one of my mother's quilts, hand-stitched, every square a memory, and hold it up to the light. "How much for this?" Jessica, standing behind the table in designer sunglasses, checked the tag. $25. It's vintage, but it's got some stains. Those stains were from Daniel's baby spit-up, from Christmas morning hot chocolate, from life lived and loved. "I can't watch this," I whispered. "You don't have to," Eleanor said. "I'll get Mrs. Chen to document everything. You stay here, breathe." But then I saw who was buying my wedding china, Mrs. Chen. She handed Jessica $40, took the box, walked calmly to her car, and drove away. 10 minutes later, she was pulling up beside us, window rolled down, the china safe in her passenger seat. "I couldn't let a stranger take it," she said, tears in her eyes. "I'll keep it safe until you get your house back." I couldn't speak, just reached through the window and squeezed her hand. Over the next 2 hours, Mrs. Chen bought 7 more items. Robert's books, my mother's sewing machine, 2 quilts, the painting. She spent nearly $300 of her own money rescuing my life from Jessica's garage sale. Small victory number 2. Pieces of my history saved by the kindness of a neighbor. But it came with a cost. Watching Jessica pocket that money, watching her smile and chat with strangers buying my memories, watching her treat 45 years of my life like merchandise to be liquidated, it broke something in me. "She's going to pay," Eleanor said quietly. "Margaret, I promise you, she is going to pay for every single item she sold, every single thing she threw away, every single moment of pain she's caused." "I know." I wiped my eyes. "I just want to go back to the motel now." That evening, as I sat in my depressing room with its industrial carpet and flickering lamp, Daniel called. "Mom?" His voice was small, broken. "Mom, I'm so sorry." "Danny." I hadn't called him that in years. "Baby, where are you?" "I'm at work. I can't." "Mom, I saw the garage sale photos. Mrs. Chen sent them to me. I didn't know Jessica was going to do that. I swear I didn't know." "Did you try to stop her?" Silence. "Danny?" I tried. "I told her maybe we should talk to you first. Maybe we should figure this out. She said..." His voice cracked. "She said if I kept being a mama's boy, she'd leave me. She said you'd kept me under your thumb my whole life, and it was time for me to be a man and choose my wife over my mother." My heart shattered for him. "Oh, sweetheart." "I don't know what to do. I love her, but Mom, I don't even recognize her anymore. She's not the person I married. Or maybe she is, and I just didn't want to see it." He was crying now. "Did I do this? Did I let her treat you this way?" "Danny, listen to me. You are not responsible for her choices. You are not responsible for her cruelty. But you are responsible for what you do next. You're responsible for whether you stand by and watch or whether you stand up for what's right. I'm scared." "I know, baby, I know." "Mom, where are you staying? Are you okay?" "I'm at the Comfort Inn on Route 9, room 217. I'm okay. Eleanor's helping me." "Eleanor Martinez? Your old law partner?" "Yes." A pause. "Mom, do you have a case? Can you get the house back?" I thought about the trust documents, about the evidence folder growing thicker every day, about Jessica's social media posts and her garage sale and her complete documented disregard for the law. "Yes, Danny, I can get the house back." "Good." His voice turned hard. "Good. Because what she did to you, Mom, what she did was evil. I see that now." "I'm sorry it took me so long." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of that motel room and cried for my son, caught between love and loyalty, for my husband, who tried to protect us even in death, for myself, homeless in a town where I'd lived for 40 years, but underneath the grief, underneath the pain, something else was building. Determination, strategy, the cold, calculated patience of someone who's decided that enough is enough. Eleanor's second letter would arrive Monday, the one with the trust documents attached, the one that would finally make Jessica understand that she'd made a terrible mistake. I couldn't wait to see her face when she realized the truth, but I wouldn't be there to see it. I'd be here, in this motel room, playing the long game, because that's what Robert would have done. That's what he'd taught me to do. Make her learn. Oh, I was about to teach Jessica Hayes a lesson she'd carry for the rest of her life. Eleanor's second letter arrived Monday morning at 10:47 a.m. I know because Mrs. Chen texted me the exact time, along with, "She just signed for it. Looks thick. I'm watching through my kitchen window." This letter was different. 20 pages. The first page was another formal notice. The remaining 19 pages were copies of the Hayes Family Irrevocable Trust, complete with legal signatures, notarization, and filing stamps. Property deed showing transfer to the trust certification, proving Margaret Hayes as sole beneficiary, state property records confirming no change in ownership upon Robert's death. Legal precedent citations showing that trust property doesn't pass through estates. Eleanor had included a cover letter, and she'd let me write part of it. "Ms. Hayes, since you and your counsel seem confused about property law, allow me to clarify. The property at 1247 Maple Street has been owned by an irrevocable trust since 2014. Robert Hayes transferred it out of his personal ownership 10 years ago. Upon his death, the property remained with the trust, not with his estate, not with his son, certainly not with you. You are occupying property you do not own and have never owned. Every moment you remain constitutes criminal trespass. Every change you make to the property constitutes vandalism. Every item you've sold or discarded constitutes theft. You have 48 hours to vacate. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action. I've attached documentation proving everything I've stated. I suggest you show these documents to your attorney and ask him why he failed to conduct even basic due diligence before advising you. Margaret Hayes no longer wishes to communicate with you directly. All further communication will be through counsel. Eleanor Martinez, Esquern. Mrs. Chen's updates came rapid fire over the next hour. 10:52 a.m. She's reading it. Face is getting red. 10:58 a.m. She's on the phone, yelling. I can hear her through the walls. 11:15 a.m. A car just pulled up. Man in a suit. Cheap suit. Must be her lawyer. 11:47 a.m. He just left. Looked pale. Jessica's screaming at Daniel. 12:03 p.m. Daniel just left. Looked like he'd been crying. I sat in Eleanor's office, watching my phone, my heart pounding. She's panicking, Eleanor said with satisfaction. Good. Let her panic. At 2:34 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Jessica's voice, high-pitched and venomous. "You bitch! You lying old bitch! I don't know what kind of fake documents you had your lawyer friend make, but I'm not falling for it. This house belonged to Robert, and now it belongs to Daniel and me. You can't just show up with some paperwork and expect me to believe it. I've talked to my lawyer, and he says we have every right to be here. So you can take your threats and your fake trust and shove them up your—" The message cut off. 30 seconds later, another voicemail. "And another thing, I know you're trying to manipulate Daniel. He's been acting weird ever since you called him. Stop trying to turn my husband against me. He knows whose side he's on. We're not leaving. This is our house. Deal with it." Eleanor listened to both messages twice. Perfect. She's threatening you, admitting she has no intention of leaving and showing consciousness of guilt by accusing you of faking documents. She looked up, grinning. Margaret, she's destroying her own case and she doesn't even realize it. What happens now? Now we file. We've given her notice. She's refused to comply. We have documentation of everything. Time to take her to court. The eviction petition was filed Wednesday morning. Jessica was served Thursday afternoon. Mrs. Chen sent me a photo. Jessica, standing in the driveway holding the court summons, her face twisted in fury. Caption, she's been screaming about it for 20 minutes. Says it's all fake, says you're harassing her, says she's gonna sue you. Daniel came home an hour ago, they're fighting. Bad. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks out, November 30th. 2 weeks before Christmas. For the next 10 days, I watched Jessica spiral. She tried to refinance the house, called 3 different banks, tried to get cash out based on the property value. Each bank told her the same thing. She wasn't on the deed. She couldn't refinance property she didn't own. The bank won't let me refinance, she posted on Instagram, followed by an angry emoji. This is insane. The house is mine. Banks are so stupid. So banking problems is frustrating. She tried to take out a home equity loan. Same result. Not on the deed, not eligible. She tried to add herself to the property deed, went to the county recorder's office, demanded they add her name. They explained, I imagine with great patience, that she couldn't just add herself to property owned by a trust without being named in the trust documents. "This is discrimination," she'd screamed, according to Mrs. Chen, who happened to be at the recorder's office that day for her own reasons. "I'm being discriminated against because of my age, because I'm young. This is illegal." The clerk had apparently suggested she consult with her attorney. Every failed attempt made her more desperate, more angry, more reckless. And then she called me. I was having lunch with Eleanor when my phone rang. Jessica's name on the screen. I almost declined, but Eleanor grabbed my hand. "Answer it. Put it on speaker. Record it." She pulled out her own phone, started a voice memo. I answered. "Hello? Margaret." Jessica's voice was saccharine sweet now, completely different from her screaming voicemails. "Hi, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to talk if that's okay." Woman to woman. "I'm listening. Look, I know you're upset about the house situation, and I understand. It's emotional. You lived there a long time, but you have to see this from my perspective. Daniel is Robert's son. Robert died. The house should go to his child. That's just basic common sense, right? The house is in a trust, Jessica. It was never Robert's to leave to Daniel." "Well, yes, your lawyer says that, but I've talked to people, and trusts can be contested. Especially if the person who created the trust was, not in their right mind. Robert had cancer. He was on pain medication. Who knows if he really understood what he was signing?" I closed my eyes. She was suggesting Robert was incompetent, suggesting my brilliant, meticulous husband didn't know what he was doing. Robert created the trust 10 years ago, Jessica, long before he got sick. Still, people make mistakes. And I think if we just sit down and talk about this reasonably, we can work something out. You don't really want to take this to court, do you? That's so expensive, so stressful. Why don't we settle? What kind of settlement did you have in mind? A pause. I could hear her breathing, calculating. Well, Daniel and I have been talking, and we think we could pay you for your share, like a buyout. We could give you, say, $50,000? That's a lot of money, Margaret. You could get a nice apartment, have money left over. It's generous. $50,000. For a house worth $500,000. For the home Robert and I built with our own hands. For 45 years of memories. Eleanor's eyes had gone wide with fury. She mouthed, "Keep her talking." 50,000, I repeated slowly, for a house worth $500,000. Well, yes, but you have to understand Daniel and I would be taking on the mortgage. There is no mortgage, Jessica. Robert and I paid it off 15 years ago. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, fine. But there's maintenance, property taxes, upkeep. $50,000 is fair. Jessica, I said, keeping my voice level, calm. Do you remember what you did the day of Robert's funeral? What? Why are you... Do you remember putting my belongings in trash bags, throwing them on the curb like garbage? Do you remember changing the locks while I was burying my husband? Silence. Do you remember selling my mother's quilts for $25, my wedding china for $40? Do you remember posting on social media about your beautiful new house while I was sleeping in a motel? I didn't think you didn't think I'd what? Fight back? You thought I'd just accept it? Just let you steal my home and disappear quietly? I didn't steal anything. The house should have been Daniel's. Jessica, I tried to warn you. Eleanor tried to warn you. You've been served with court documents proving you have no claim to that property. You've been ordered to leave. And instead of leaving, instead of admitting your mistake, you're now trying to get me to pay you to leave my own house. Her voice turned sharp. You're making a mistake, old woman. I have rights. Daniel has rights. We're not leaving and you can't make us. Your stupid trust doesn't mean anything. I don't care what some papers say. I'm not going anywhere. Then I'll see you in court. Yeah? Well, good luck with that. I've got a lawyer too, and he says, your lawyer is incompetent, Jessica. He failed to do even basic research. He took your word for everything without checking a single document. And now you're both going to stand in front of a judge and explain why you think you can illegally evict a widow and occupy her property without consequence. I'm warning you. No, Jessica, I'm warning you. Leave now. Leave before this gets worse. Leave before you face criminal charges on top of civil penalties. Leave before you destroy your marriage, your reputation, and any chance you have at a future. Fuck you, Margaret. I'm not going anywhere. That house is mine and you can't... I hung up. Eleanor stopped the recording, replayed it, played it again. She admitted she won't leave, Eleanor said slowly, her lawyer brain working. She admitted she doesn't care about the legal documents. She threatened you. She called you old woman. She claimed ownership of property she knows she doesn't own. She looked up at me, eyes shining. Margaret, she just handed us everything we need. Small victory number 3, complete recorded proof of Jessica's intent to illegally occupy the property. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like watching a car crash in slow motion, watching someone destroy themselves and being powerless to stop it. Except I wasn't powerless. I had evidence. I had the law. I had patience. And I had a court date. The collapse began subtly, like cracks forming in a dam before the flood. It started with Jessica's friends. Mrs. Chen noticed it first. The Instagram comments are changing, she told me over coffee at a diner near my motel. We'd started meeting weekly, her way of making sure I was eating, my way of staying connected to what was happening in my neighborhood. She showed me her phone, scrolling through Jessica's recent posts. The garage sale photo that had once gotten dozens of heart emojis and "Yassus Queen" comments now had different responses. Wait, you sold someone else's stuff? That seems wrong. Did you say this was your father-in-law's house? Where's his wife? Why are you having a garage sale with things that belong to your husband's dead dad? This is weird. I actually know Margaret Hayes. She's lovely. What happened to her? One commenter, someone named Rachel, who apparently went to high school with Jessica, wrote, Jess, people are saying you kicked out your mother-in-law while she was at the funeral. Please tell me that's not true. That's literally sociopathic behavior. Jessica had deleted that comment, but screenshots lived forever, and someone had already shared it to a local Facebook group dedicated to neighborhood news. The post in the group was titled, "Is this woman really bragging about stealing her Mills house?" It had 347 comments. I read them all, my coffee going cold. My mother-in-law is difficult, but I would never do this. This is elder abuse. Someone should call protective services. She changed the locks while the woman was at her husband's funeral? What kind of monster? I hope karma comes for this girl fast and hard. Eleanor had warned me this would happen. Small towns talk, Margaret. Social media makes it worse. She's been parading her cruelty publicly, and eventually people notice. By the end of the week, Jessica's friend group had visibly shrunk. The blonde woman from the house party, the one who'd been in the video with Jessica, posted a pointed status, "Sometimes you don't realize who someone really is until they show you. Choose your friends wisely." Jessica's response was to double down. More Instagram posts, more defiance, more public displays of her beautiful new home. Post from November 20th, a photo of contractors in my living room, the wall between the kitchen and dining room partially demolished. Caption, "Renovation Day, finally opening up this space like it should have been from the start. The old layout was so closed off and dated. Modern living requires flow. Renovation and open concept, modern home." That wall had been specifically designed by Robert to preserve the historical integrity of the house. It was load-bearing. Taking it down required permits, structural engineering, professional work. I called Mrs. Chen. Did she get permits for that? I don't think so. The contractors looked sketchy. One of them was smoking in your backyard. Call the building inspector. Report unpermitted construction. 2 days later, the city shut down Jessica's renovation. A notice appeared on the door. Stop work order, no permit. Mrs. Chen sent me a photo of Jessica screaming at the building inspector in the driveway. Small victory number 4. Her illegal construction stopped. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Daniel. He'd been quiet since our phone call, distant from Jessica. Spending long hours at work according to Mrs. Chen's reports. But on November 22nd, his mother's birthday, Robert and I had always taken her out to dinner, always bought her flowers, always made sure she felt celebrated. Daniel was using Jessica's iPad, and he saw her text messages with her own mother. Mrs. Chen got the full story from Daniel himself. He'd shown up at her door at midnight, looking destroyed, and told her everything. She called me immediately. "Margaret, you need to hear this. Can I put Daniel on the phone?" Of course. My son's voice was hollow, broken. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Danny, what happened?" I saw her texts with her mom from months ago, from before Dad even died. He took a shaky breath. "They planned this, Mom. They planned all of it." He read them to me, every single message. I had Eleanor on three-way call, recording everything. Jessica to her mother, August 15th, 2 weeks before Robert died. "Robert's not going to last much longer. Doctor says maybe a month. Daniel's going to inherit the house. We can finally get out of this shitty apartment." Her mother's response, "What about Margaret?" Jessica, "What about her? She's old. She can go to a nursing home or something. We're not sharing a house with Daniel's mother. Are you insane?" Her mother, "Won't there be legal issues?" Jessica, "I've already looked into it. When someone dies, their property goes to their kids. It's automatic. Margaret will have to leave. If she doesn't, we'll make her." Her mother, "Be careful, Jess." Jessica, "Mom, relax. The old woman won't fight back. She's too grief-stricken, too weak. By the time she realizes what happened, we'll have already sold the place and moved to Florida. We're talking $500,000, minimum, maybe more. This is our ticket out." More messages, dozens of them, planning how to redecorate, calculating the potential sale price, discussing how to handle Margaret. Jessica, September 3rd, the day before Robert's funeral. "Tomorrow's the funeral. I'm going to give it a week after to be respectful. Then I'll tell her she needs to leave. It's for the best. She's too old to maintain a house that big anyway." Her mother, "A week? That seems fast." Jessica, "The faster we move, the less she can fight back. Possession is 9/10 of the law, remember? Once we're in, she's out." And then the message that changed everything. Jessica, September 4th, 11:47 a.m., during Robert's funeral. Changed the locks. Locksmith just left. Packed up her stuff. She'll come home and find out it's not her home anymore. Harsh, I know, but necessary. Daniel doesn't need to know the details. I'll tell him it had to be done for legal reasons. By the time Margaret realizes what happened, it'll be too late. What's she going to do? Sue us? She's 68 and grieving. She'll give up. Daniel's voice cracked as he finished reading. Mom, she did this while we were burying Dad. She planned it for weeks. She manipulated me. She lied to me. She made me think. She said you knew about it, that you'd agreed to move out, that this was all settled between you two. Oh, Danny. I believed her. I'm so stupid. I believed my own wife over my mother, and the whole time she was... Mom, she never loved Dad. She never cared about our family. She just wanted the house, just wanted money. I married a monster. You didn't know? I should have known. I should have seen it. Instead, I let her throw your things in the trash, let her sell your china, let her destroy everything you and Dad built. What kind of son does that? The kind who was lied to by someone he trusted. Danny, this isn't your fault. It is, though. It is my fault because I could have stopped it and I didn't. I could have stood up to her and I didn't. I chose comfort over courage, and you paid the price. He was sobbing now. I'm leaving her, Mom. I'm done. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Danny, no, I'm done. I'm done with her lies, her manipulation, her cruelty. I'm done being married to someone who could do this to my own mother while we buried my father. I'm done. Eleanor had been silent this whole time, listening, recording. Now she spoke. Daniel, this is Eleanor Martinez, your mother's attorney. Do you have access to those text messages still? Yes, I took screenshots of all of them, hundreds of them. Can you forward them to me? And Daniel? Is Jessica aware you've seen these? Not yet, she's asleep. I'm in the car. I can't be in that house with her right now. I can't look at her. Daniel, you need to listen very carefully. Those text messages are evidence of premeditated illegal eviction. They prove Jessica knew exactly what she was doing, that she planned it in advance, that she deliberately timed it to coincide with the funeral for maximum vulnerability. That's not just civil wrongdoing. That's criminal. Good. She deserves to be in jail. Before you confront her, before you tell her you're leaving, I need those screenshots sent to me. I need them time-stamped and verified. Can you do that tonight? I'll do it right now. 5 minutes later, Eleanor's phone chimed with incoming messages. Dozens of them. Months of evidence, all carefully documented in Jessica's own words. Eleanor looked at me and I saw something rare in her eyes. Genuine, unfiltered shock at the depths of human cruelty. She planned it from the beginning, Eleanor said softly. She didn't just seize an opportunity, she strategized it, she calculated it, she weaponized your grief. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. My husband's death hadn't even been cold when Jessica was measuring rooms for renovations. His funeral wasn't even over when she was changing locks. She'd turned my tragedy into her opportunity, and she'd documented all of it, arrogant enough to believe she'd never be caught. What happens now? I finally managed to ask. Eleanor's expression hardened. Now we go for blood. The next morning, everything accelerated. Daniel came to Eleanor's office. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Eyes hollow, face unshaven, hands trembling as he signed a legal affidavit swearing to the authenticity of the text messages. She doesn't know I left, he said. She thinks I went to work early. When she realizes I'm not coming back, she'll panic, Eleanor finished. Good, let her panic. I called my Uncle Pete last night, Daniel continued, referring to Robert's older brother. Told him everything. He's calling everyone. Aunt Sarah, Aunt Linda, all of Dad's family. They want to help, Mom. They're furious. Within hours, my phone was flooded with calls and messages from Robert's siblings. All 4 of them, spread across 3 states, united in their rage at what Jessica had done. Pete Hayes, Robert's eldest brother. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. If I'd known, we all thought you were handling estate matters, taking time to grieve. We had no idea that girl had stolen your house. Robert would be devastated. What do you need from us?" Sarah Hayes Kowalski, Robert's sister. "I never liked that woman. Never. Robert saw it too, you know. He told me once that Jessica reminded him of a cat eyeing a canary. I'm testifying for you, Margaret. Whatever you need." By noon, Eleanor had collected 5 written statements from Robert's family members, all willing to testify that Robert had been mentally sharp until his final days. Robert had specifically mentioned creating a trust to protect Margaret. Robert had expressed concerns about Jessica's materialistic behavior. Robert had made it clear he wanted Margaret to remain in the house. But the most valuable ally emerged from Jessica's own camp, Nicole Peterson, the blonde woman from the party, the one who'd been Jessica's best friend since college. She called Eleanor's office directly. "Is this the attorney representing Margaret Hayes? I need to talk to someone. It's about Jessica Hayes. I know something important." Eleanor put her on speaker. Nicole's voice shook. "I've been friends with Jessica for 12 years. We were college roommates. And I need to tell someone what I know because I can't live with myself if I don't." "Go on." 3 months ago, Jessica asked me to come over to help her organize some paperwork. She was at Margaret and Robert's house. Margaret wasn't there. She was at the hospital with Robert. Jessica had a key from Daniel. What happened? Jessica was going through filing cabinets in Robert's office, looking for financial documents, bank statements, property information. She told me she was trying to understand what Daniel would inherit so they could plan their future. Eleanor and I exchanged glances. "And then," Eleanor prompted, "she found the trust documents. I remember because she got so angry, started swearing, saying Robert had screwed them over, that he'd hidden the house from Daniel. She called Margaret a manipulative bitch who'd convinced Robert to cut Daniel out of his inheritance." "What did you say?" "I told her that wasn't how trusts work. I work in financial planning, so I know a little about estate law. I told her the trust probably named Margaret as beneficiary because that's standard. You protect the surviving spouse. And if Robert created it years ago, it had nothing to do with cutting Daniel out. It was just smart estate planning." How did Jessica respond? She said, and I remember this exactly, she said, "I don't care about the law. When Robert dies, Margaret is old and weak. She won't fight us. We'll move in, establish residency, and by the time she figures out what's happening, it'll be too late to stop us. She'll give up and go to a nursing home like she should have done years ago." The room went silent. "You heard her plan to illegally evict Margaret?" "Yes. I told her that was insane, that it was illegal, that she'd get in trouble. She laughed at me, said I worried too much, said old people give up easy, that Margaret would be too grief-stricken to fight, that Daniel would support whatever Jessica decided." Nicole's voice broke. "I should have warned someone. I should have called Margaret or the police or someone. But Jessica was my best friend, and I thought she'd change her mind. I thought she was just venting, just stressed about money. I didn't think she'd actually do it. But she did. Yeah, and I've been watching her posts, seeing her brag about the house, seeing her sell Margaret's belongings, and I can't anymore. I can't be friends with someone who would do this. So I'm telling you everything. I'll testify, I'll put it in writing, whatever you need." Eleanor looked at me. I nodded. "Nicole, can you come to my office today? I need to get a formal statement while this is fresh." "I'm already in my car. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When she hung up, Eleanor let out a long breath. "That's it. That's the case. We have proof of premeditation now from 2 separate sources, Jessica's text messages and an eyewitness who heard her planning it months in advance. Will it be enough? Enough? Margaret, we don't just have enough. We have an overwhelming case. We have documentation, eyewitnesses, recorded admissions, physical evidence, and now testimony from someone in Jessica's own inner circle proving she knew exactly what she was doing." Eleanor smiled. "She's done. Completely done. Nicole arrived 37 minutes later. She was pretty in a wholesome way, nothing like Jessica's calculated glamour. She looked exhausted and guilty and determined all at once. "I'm so sorry," she said when she saw me. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped her. I should have warned you." "You're warning me now," I said. "That takes courage." "It's not courage. It's the bare minimum of human decency. Jessica is... God, I don't even know who she is anymore. Maybe I never did." She sat down, and Eleanor began taking her statement. The details were damning. Nicole described Jessica's obsession with the house's value, her cold calculations about timing the eviction, her dismissive comments about elderly people being easy to manipulate, her statements that Robert was wasting the house by not selling it, her plans to flip the property for maximum profit. She had a whole spreadsheet, Nicole said, estimated renovation costs, projected sale price, profit margins. She'd been planning this for at least 6 months before Robert even died. By the time Nicole left, her statement notarized, her willingness to testify confirmed, Eleanor's case file had grown to nearly 200 pages. Small victory number 5, an insider witness who could destroy Jessica's credibility. That evening, Jessica finally realized Daniel wasn't coming home. She called him. He didn't answer. She called me. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was frantic. "Daniel, where are you? Why aren't you answering? Did your mother put you up to this? This is ridiculous. Come home. We need to talk about the court date. My lawyer says we need to present a united front. Daniel, pick up the goddamn phone." 3 hours later, another message. "Fine, be a mama's boy, but you're still my husband and this is still our house. You can't just abandon your wife because your mommy's upset. Grow up, Daniel. Grow up." By 11 p.m., her tone had changed again. "Baby, please, I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening. Why won't you talk to me? Did I do something wrong? Please come home. I love you. We can fix this. Just please call me back." The desperation was palpable. Her world was collapsing. The next morning, Daniel filed for divorce. Grounds: irreconcilable differences and emotional abuse. He also signed a legal document disclaiming any interest in the Hayes family trust and any property therein. The document was clear. Daniel Hayes had no claim to 1247 Maple Street and supported his mother's full ownership and right to immediate possession. When Jessica received the divorce papers, she completely broke down. Mrs. Chen reported that Jessica had screamed for hours, threw things, broke a window, called Daniel over and over, leaving increasingly unhinged messages. And then she did something desperate. She tried to destroy the house. Mrs. Chen called me at 2 a.m., her voice panicked. "Margaret, she's destroying your house. I called the police. They're on their way. But you need to know, she's going crazy in there, breaking things, smashing walls, cutting wires. I can hear it through the walls." Eleanor and I arrived at the same time as the police. 3 squad cars, lights flashing, illuminating my house, my beautiful house, in strobing blue and red. The officers went inside, came out 15 minutes later with Jessica in handcuffs. She was screaming, "This is my house, my house. She can't do this to me. I have rights, I have rights." One officer approached me. "Ma'am, are you Margaret Hayes, the property owner?" "Yes. We need you to come inside and document the damage for the report." I followed them in, Eleanor beside me, Mrs. Chen behind us holding a flashlight. The destruction was systematic, vindictive. Jessica had taken a hammer to the walls, holes everywhere, drywall crumbling. She'd cut electrical wires. The house was dark, powerless. She'd smashed the kitchen cabinets, the custom maple ones that cost $8,000. She'd broken every window on the first floor. She'd poured bleach on the carpets. She'd used red spray paint to write across the living room wall in huge letters, "This is mine." I stood in my destroyed living room and felt nothing, just empty, just tired. "We'll need photos of everything," the officer said gently, "for the criminal charges." "Criminal charges?" Yes, ma'am. This is criminal mischief, vandalism, and destruction of property, possibly trespassing depending on the civil case. Ms. Hayes will be arraigned tomorrow. Eleanor was already taking pictures, documenting every broken surface, every cut wire, every spray-painted word. The court date is in 4 days, she said to me quietly. She just destroyed her own case. No judge will have any sympathy for her now. I looked around at the home Robert and I had built, the walls we'd painted together, the floors we'd refinished, the kitchen where we'd cooked Sunday dinners, all of it destroyed by a woman who'd never understood that a house isn't just walls and wood. It's memories, it's history, it's love made tangible. Jessica had tried to take that from me, and she'd failed. Let's go, I said. I've seen enough. Outside, Jessica was in the back of a police car, still screaming, still insisting the house was hers. Mrs. Chen put her arm around me. It's almost over, Margaret. Yeah, I said, almost. 4 more days until court. 4 more days until Jessica would face a judge and answer for what she'd done. 4 more days until justice. November 30th arrived cold and gray, the kind of morning where frost clung to everything like the world itself was holding its breath. I stood outside the courthouse at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes before our hearing. Eleanor beside me, Daniel on my other side. My son had insisted on coming, insisted on standing with me, on making clear whose side he was on. You don't have to be here, I'd told him that morning. Yes, I do, he'd replied. I should have been here from the beginning. The courthouse steps were slippery with ice. I gripped the railing, my other hand clutching the folder Eleanor had prepared. 200 pages of evidence, organized chronologically, tabbed and highlighted, and impossible to refute. We were early. Jessica was late. She arrived at 9:03 a.m. in a car I didn't recognize, followed by a man in an expensive suit. Not Thomas Berkeley, the cheap lawyer who'd written that dismissive email. Someone new, someone who'd probably charged her a significant retainer just to show up. Jessica looked different, thinner, dark circles under her eyes despite the makeup, hair pulled back severely. She wore a conservative navy dress and pearls, nothing like her usual style, playing the part of the respectable young wife, I assumed. Our eyes met across the parking lot. She looked away first. We filed into courtroom 3B, Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. I'd appeared before Judge Morrison a dozen times during my career. She was fair, thorough, and had exactly 0 tolerance for nonsense. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Morrison entered, a black woman in her early 60s with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She settled into her seat, reviewed the case file, and looked up with an expression that suggested she'd already made up her mind about something. This is the matter of Hayes versus Hayes, she said. Eviction proceeding with associated claims. Ms. Martinez, you're representing the petitioner? Eleanor stood. Yes, Your Honor. Eleanor Martinez for Margaret Hayes, petitioner and legal owner of the property in question. And for the respondent? Jessica's new lawyer stood. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with slicked-back hair and a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. David Whitmore, Your Honor, representing Jessica Hayes. Mr. Whitmore, I see you filed a motion yesterday requesting a continuance. Care to explain why you think I should delay these proceedings? Whitmore cleared his throat. Your Honor, I was only retained 3 days ago. I haven't had adequate time to review the full scope of... 3 days is plenty of time to read a trust document and property records, Counselor. Motion denied. We're proceeding. She looked at Eleanor. Ms. Martinez, this is your petition. Let's hear it. Eleanor approached the bench with the confidence of someone who knew she'd already won. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. My client, Margaret Hayes, is the sole beneficiary and trustee of the Hayes Family Irrevocable Trust, which owns the property at 1247 Maple Street. The trust was created in 2014 by my client's late husband, Robert Hayes. Upon Robert's death on September 3rd of this year, the property remained with the trust, and thus with my client. And the respondent's claim to the property? The respondent has no claim, none whatsoever. She is the daughter-in-law of the deceased, married to his son, Daniel Hayes. Daniel Hayes has no ownership interest in the trust property and has signed a legal disclaimer to that effect. Eleanor placed a document on the bench. The respondent illegally evicted my client from her own home on September 4th, the day of Robert Hayes' funeral, changed the locks, disposed of my client's personal property, and has since refused to vacate despite multiple notices. Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. She changed the locks on the day of the funeral? During the funeral, Your Honor. While my client was at the cemetery burying her husband of 45 years, the respondent hired a locksmith, changed every lock on the property, and placed my client's belongings in trash bags on the curb. The judge looked at Jessica. It wasn't a kind look. Is this accurate, Ms. Hayes? Jessica's lawyer started to stand, but Jessica spoke first, her voice small. I thought the house was my husband's. Ms. Hayes, I asked if you changed the locks during the funeral. Yes or no? Yes, but... Thank you. Judge Morrison turned back to Eleanor. Continue. Your Honor, I've prepared a timeline of events with supporting documentation. Eleanor approached the bench with her folder. Tab 1 contains the trust documents establishing legal ownership. Tab 2 contains security camera footage from a neighbor showing the respondent loading my client's belongings into trash bags. Tab 3 contains social media posts where the respondent repeatedly claimed ownership of the property and bragged about her inheritance. Tab 4 contains text messages between the respondent and her mother, dated weeks before Robert Hayes' death, showing premeditation and planning of the illegal eviction. Judge Morrison put on her reading glasses and began reviewing the documents. The courtroom was silent except for the rustle of paper. After what felt like hours but was probably 5 minutes, the judge looked up. Mr. Whitmore, I'm looking at text messages where your client explicitly discusses locking the widow out of her home, selling the property for profit, and sending the widow to a nursing home. Messages dated August 15th, 3 weeks before the husband's death. What's your defense to this? Whitmore stood, looking less confident now. Your Honor, my client was under the mistaken impression that the property would pass to her husband through normal inheritance. It was a good faith misunderstanding of property law. Good faith? Judge Morrison's voice could have cut glass. Counselor, your client sent a text message that said, and I quote, I don't care about the law. When Robert dies, Margaret is old and weak. She won't fight us. Does that sound like good faith to you? Your Honor, people say things in private they don't mean. She said it repeatedly to multiple people over several months, and then she acted on it. The judge set down the papers. Ms. Martinez, you mentioned property damage? Yes, Your Honor. After being served with eviction papers, the respondent systematically destroyed my client's home, cut electrical wires, smashed cabinets, broke windows, spray-painted the walls. She was arrested for criminal mischief on November 26th. I have police reports, photographs, and an inspector's assessment of damages totaling over $15,000. Judge Morrison looked at Jessica like she was something that had crawled out from under a rock. Ms. Hayes, did you vandalize the property? Jessica was crying now, mascara running down her face. I was upset. I was emotional. My husband left me. My whole life fell apart. Because you illegally evicted his mother and stole her house, the judge said flatly. Ms. Hayes, I'm trying to find even a shred of sympathy for you, and I'm coming up empty. Mr. Whitmore, does your client have any legal basis for claiming rights to this property? Your Honor, if we could just... Yes or no, Counselor? Whitmore deflated. No, Your Honor. Based on the trust documents, no. Then we're done with the legal question. The property belongs to Margaret Hayes, full stop. She turned to Eleanor. Your client is seeking immediate possession and damages? Yes, Your Honor. Immediate eviction, property damages, emotional distress, legal fees and costs associated with alternative housing. Ms. Hayes, you have anything to say before I rule? Jessica stood, wobbling slightly. She looked at me for the first time since entering the courtroom. Her face was a mess of tears and desperation. "Margaret, please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't understand how things worked. I just wanted a nice place to live with Daniel. I didn't mean to hurt you." I stood, slowly. Eleanor touched my arm. She hadn't expected this, but I shook my head. I needed to say this. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" Judge Morrison nodded. "Go ahead, Mrs. Hayes." I turned to face Jessica fully, looked her in the eyes, saw the woman who destroyed my life and was now begging for mercy. "Jessica," I said, my voice steady, "my husband and I spent 45 years building this home. We raised our son there. We worked hard, saved every penny, planned for our future. We painted the walls together. We planted the gardens together. We made every decision as partners, as people who loved each other and wanted to build something that would last." Jessica's tears flowed harder. "You walked into our lives 5 years ago and decided you were entitled to everything we'd built, not because you needed it. You had your own apartment. Not because you earned it. You never lifted a finger to help when Robert was dying, but because you wanted it, because you saw dollar signs and opportunity." I took a step closer. "You threw my wedding album in the trash. You sold my mother's china for $20. You told my son I should go to a nursing home. You changed the locks on my house while I was lowering my husband's casket into the ground." My voice didn't shake. I wouldn't let it. "And now you stand here and say, you didn't mean to hurt me? You planned this for months. You texted your mother about it. You bragged to your friends about it. You documented your own cruelty on social media for the world to see. You didn't mean to hurt me? You meant exactly what you did." Jessica sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "But here's what you need to understand, Jessica. Greed doesn't make you powerful. It makes you desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. You made many." I turned back to Judge Morrison. "Your Honor, I don't want an apology. I want justice. I want my home back. I want compensation for what she destroyed, and I want to make sure she never does this to anyone else." Judge Morrison nodded slowly. "Mrs. Hayes, you'll get exactly that. Please be seated." I sat. Daniel reached over and squeezed my hand. "Here's my ruling," Judge Morrison said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Judge Morrison removed her glasses and looked directly at Jessica. "Ms. Hayes, in 30 years on the bench, I have seen people do terrible things. I've seen families torn apart by greed, by addiction, by violence. But what you did, targeting a grieving widow, planning her eviction while her husband was dying, executing that plan during his funeral, represents a particular kind of cruelty that I find genuinely disturbing." Jessica's lawyer tried to interject. "Your Honor." "I'm not finished, Mr. Whitmore. Sit down." He sat. "Ms. Hayes, you are hereby ordered to vacate the premises at 1247 Maple Street within 24 hours, not 48 hours, not a week, 24 hours. You will remove your personal belongings and nothing else. Any item that belonged to the property prior to your illegal occupation remains with the property. If you are not out by 5 p.m. tomorrow, the sheriff will remove you by force." Jessica made a strangled sound. "Furthermore, you are ordered to pay restitution to Margaret Hayes in the following amounts: $15,000 for property damage, based on the inspector's assessment, $8,000 for emotional distress, and frankly, Ms. Hayes, that's generous given what you put this woman through, $12,000 for legal fees, $5,000 for hotel and temporary housing costs. That's $40,000 total." Jessica's face went white. I can't. You have 60 days to pay in full. If you fail to pay, your wages will be garnished until the debt is satisfied. And given that you apparently thought you could sell this house for $500,000, I'm confident you can find a way to come up with $40,000. Your Honor, my client doesn't have that kind of money. Whitmore tried again. Then she shouldn't have destroyed $15,000 worth of property, should she, Counselor? Judge Morrison's voice was ice. Moving on, Ms. Hayes, you are also being placed on supervised probation for 1 year in connection with your criminal mischief charges. Any violation of probation will result in jail time. Additionally, I am issuing a permanent restraining order. You are not to come within 500 feet of Margaret Hayes or the property at 1247 Maple Street. No contact, direct or indirect. If you violate this order, you will be arrested. She signed several documents, each stroke of her pen like a hammer fall. Ms. Hayes, do you understand these orders? Jessica could barely speak. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, Your Honor. Louder now, broken. Good. Because if I see you in my courtroom again for anything related to this matter, I will hold you in contempt, and you will spend time in a cell. Am I clear? Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Preens. Hayes. Judge Morrison's voice softened as she addressed me. I am deeply sorry for what you've endured. You have shown remarkable grace and patience throughout this ordeal. The property is yours. It has always been yours. I hope you can find peace there again. Thank you, Your Honor. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Crack! The sound of justice. I sat frozen for a moment, unable to process that it was over, that I'd won, that my home was mine again. Eleanor hugged me. Daniel hugged me. Mrs. Chen, who'd come to witness, hugged me. Across the aisle, Jessica had collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Her lawyer was packing his briefcase, already mentally calculating how to get the rest of his fee from a client who clearly had no money. David Whitmore approached Eleanor as we gathered our things. Your client was very well represented, he said quietly, and mine was very foolish. For what it's worth, I advised her to settle. She refused. She refused a lot of things, Eleanor replied. Common sense, decency, basic human empathy. He nodded and left. We walked out of the courthouse into the cold November air. I took a deep breath, the first clean breath I'd felt like I'd taken in 2 months. You did it, Daniel said, his voice full of wonder and relief. Mom, you actually did it. We did it, I corrected. All of us. Eleanor, you, Mrs. Chen, Robert's family, Nicole. Everyone who stood up and told the truth. What happens now? Daniel asked. Eleanor checked her watch. Now we wait 24 hours. Then we change the locks back and Margaret goes home. Home. I was going home. The next evening at exactly 5:01 p.m., Eleanor and I pulled up to 1247 Maple Street with a locksmith, a cleaning crew, and Daniel's truck full of my belongings from storage. Jessica's car was gone. The house was empty. She'd left. The locksmith changed every lock. New keys, new deadbolts, new security system. No way anyone's getting in here without your permission, he said, handing me the keys. I stood on my front porch holding those keys, and I cried. Not sad tears. Relief. Release. The weight of 2 months lifting off my shoulders all at once. Come on, Eleanor said gently. Let's go inside. The house was a disaster. Jessica had taken everything she could carry and destroyed everything she couldn't. The gray paint on the walls, the broken cabinets, the spray-painted message still visible under a hasty coat of white primer someone had slapped on. But it was mine. It was home. Over the next week, an army descended on 1247 Maple Street. Mrs. Chen organized the neighborhood. People I'd known for decades showed up with cleaning supplies, paintbrushes, casseroles, and determination. Mr. Patterson from 3 doors down brought his tools and repaired the cabinets. The Johnsons brought their teenage sons who repainted every room. Sarah Hayes Kowalski flew in from Ohio and spent 4 days helping me sort through what could be salvaged and what needed to be replaced. Daniel was there every day, working, cleaning, apologizing. You don't need to keep apologizing, I told him one afternoon as we removed the last of Jessica's gray paint. Yes, I do, he said. I'll apologize for the rest of my life if that's what it takes. Danny, you were manipulated by someone you loved. That's not a crime. That's being human. I chose her over you. And then you chose to make it right. That's what matters. His divorce was finalized in January. Quick and uncontested. Jessica didn't even show up to the hearing. She'd moved back in with her parents in Pennsylvania, tail between her legs, facing garnished wages and a criminal record. The $40,000 judgment? She paid none of it willingly. The garnishment started in February. I'd be receiving automatic payments for the next 3 years. Every check a reminder that actions have consequences. Her parents had called me once, furious, demanding I drop the charges and stop ruining their daughter's life. "Your daughter ruined her own life," I'd replied calmly. "I just made sure she faced the consequences." They hung up, never called again. By March, I'd hired contractors to repair the electrical damage, replace the destroyed fixtures, and restore the wall between the kitchen and dining room that Jessica had partially demolished. The house wasn't the same. It would never be exactly the same, but it was healing, like me. I found the ceramic bird, the one Robert gave me on our first anniversary, in a box in the garage. Jessica had thrown it out, but Mrs. Chen had rescued it from the trash. The wing was still broken, but I glued it back together. The crack showed, but it held. Sometimes that's enough. In April, on what would have been Robert's 69th birthday, I planted roses in the front garden. White roses, his favorite. Daniel helped me dig the holes, and we worked in comfortable silence, the way Robert and I used to. "He'd be proud of you," Daniel said, as we patted soil around the last plant. "He'd be proud of both of us," I corrected. "You stood up for what was right, even when it cost you your marriage." "That marriage was based on lies anyway. I'm better off." "You are. And you'll find someone who loves you for you, not for what you can give them." 6 months after the court date, the house was fully restored. Better than restored. Renewed. I'd kept everything that mattered, repaired everything that broke, and let go of everything that couldn't be saved. I created a memorial corner in the living room. Photos of Robert throughout our 45 years together, his architecture awards, his favorite books, the ceramic bird with its glued wing, a space to remember him, to honor him, to feel his presence in the home we built together. Jessica never got another job in our town. The court case had made local news. Her social media posts had been screenshot and shared. Employers Googled her name and found articles about the woman who evicted her grieving mother-in-law during a funeral. Her reputation was destroyed more thoroughly than she'd destroyed my house. Sometimes I felt bad about that. Sometimes I thought about mercy, about whether I'd been too harsh. But then I'd remember the trash bags on the curb, the wedding china sold for $40, the locks changed while I buried my husband, and I'd remember that I hadn't destroyed Jessica's reputation. She'd done that herself, one Instagram post at a time. Justice isn't always gentle, but it's necessary. 1 year to the day after Robert's funeral, I sat on my front porch in the October sunshine, a cup of tea growing cold in my hands, Robert's photograph beside me in a silver frame. The roses I'd planted had bloomed all summer, white and perfect, just like he'd loved them. I thought about the year I'd endured, the grief, the betrayal, the fight, the victory, the healing. People say time heals all wounds. That's not quite true. Time doesn't heal. It teaches. It teaches you what matters, what you're capable of, who you can count on when everything falls apart. I learned that grief makes you vulnerable, but it doesn't make you powerless. That even in your darkest moment, when someone is trying to take everything from you, you can still fight back, still stand up, still win. I learned that people will show you who they are if you pay attention. Jessica showed me from day one, the phone checking during conversations, the cruel comments disguised as jokes, the isolation of my son. I saw it. Robert saw it. We just hoped we were wrong. We weren't wrong. We were just too kind to believe someone could be that cruel. But I also learned about goodness, about neighbors who rescue wedding china from garage sales, about friends who fly across the country to help you paint, about sons who find the courage to admit they were wrong, about communities that rally around you when you need them most. Robert protected me even after he was gone. the trust he created, the documents he filed, the careful planning he did while he was still healthy, all of it designed to make sure I'd be okay. That's what real love does. It plans ahead. It builds fortifications. It protects. The best revenge isn't vengeance. It's simply ensuring justice is served. It's letting the system work. It's being patient enough to let cruel people destroy themselves while you document everything. Jessica wanted what she hadn't earned. She thought she could take it through speed and aggression, through targeting my grief, through assuming I was too weak to fight back. She was wrong about all of it. I finished my tea, now completely cold, set the cup down, picked up Robert's photograph and traced his face with my finger. "We won," I whispered to him. "Just like you said we would, just like you planned." The wind rustled through the roses, and I liked to imagine it was him, acknowledging, approving, at peace. If you're watching this and you've ever been betrayed by family, I want you to know something. That hollow feeling in your chest, that sense of disbelief that someone could treat you this way, it's real. Your pain is valid. Your anger is justified. But remember this, greed is loud, but patience is powerful. Those who try to steal what isn't theirs will always be exposed. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the way you expect. But eventually, the truth comes out. Eventually, justice finds its way. I'm Margaret Hayes, and I'm sitting in my home, my beautiful, hard-won, rightfully mine home, telling you that you are stronger than the people who try to break you. You are braver than you think, and you deserve to fight for what's yours. Which city are you from? Drop your location below in the comments, and if you've ever stood up to someone who tried to take advantage of your grief, your vulnerability, your kindness, tell your story. Share your victory. We're stronger when we know we're not alone in these fights. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it. Someone out there needs to hear that they can fight back, that they can win, that justice, while sometimes slow, is real. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about people who refused to be victims, who stood up for themselves, who proved that patience and truth will always triumph over greed and lies. Remember, your home is more than walls and a roof. It's memories. It's love made tangible. It's worth fighting for. And sometimes, the people who try to take it from you end up teaching you just how strong you really are. Robert and I built something that lasted. Not just a house, a legacy of love, of partnership, of doing the right thing even when it's hard. Jessica tried to destroy that legacy. Instead, she proved it was indestructible.